The hardest day of my life was driving away from that hospital without a baby. I found out that I was pregnant when I was 18, and I had just ended my first semester of college. I was your typical all-American girl. I was just pursuing the American dream, and when I saw that pregnancy test, I was like, it doesn't even matter. Nothing matters anymore. My life is over. Throughout high school, I would go to a place called Hope of Northern Virginia. My volunteer job there was to create baskets for women who were faced with unplanned pregnancy. I would just think to myself, like, well, I'm never gonna be one of those women. I wanna help them, but that's never gonna be me. I remember calling my best friend. She was my first phone call. And I told her, you'll never believe this. I just took a pregnancy test and it's positive. And I'm crying, and she's trying to calm me down, trying to tell me everything's gonna be okay. And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm gonna have to make my own basket. And we kind of laughed through tears. And at that moment, I realized that I was no better than these women that I was creating baskets for. I was a statistic. I was an unplanned pregnancy, and I'm crying. I don't know what I'm gonna do, and everything was chaotic and loud and overwhelming. And my sister was actually adopted into our family as well. And I thought of my sister's sweet face, and I thought of the joy she brought into our family. And for the first moment, after hours of crying, I felt calm and I felt peaceful, and I knew that I needed to make the decision that my sister's birth mom had made. And that was the beginning of this whole journey. I basically told my parents everything within the week that I found out.
Kelly had called me from school and said that she wasn't feeling well. I was concerned enough to go to school to see firsthand what was going on. I got there, Kelly's roommate and another friend were sitting on the bed, and they were just watching me intently. And it was just, I'm thinking, I must be so interesting. So they were just, I think, waiting for the explosion.
Well, I never told you. We went grocery shopping together and came back, and I put my groceries away, and you were basically like, okay, well, you know, my job here is done, you know, you have food, you know, you'll be okay. And you went to go back to your car, and I remember you were getting in the driver's seat, and I said, Mom, I don't know how to tell you this. And you said, then don't. Do you want to come home? And I said, yeah. And you said, okay, let's pack up your stuff, let's go back home. And that entire ride home, I never once told you that I was pregnant. You told me later that you just knew.
I did. And another amazing part of it is we were in this living room talking, and we were talking so intently that I remember the sun had gone down, and we were basically sitting in the dark, and Dad walked in and came up the stairs, and he said, why are you all sitting in the dark?
I could tell something was going on, but
yeah.
I don't know if you thought I was going to be angry or disappointed, and I can't remember why you were scared, but I just remember being so grateful and proud.
I brought up adoption right away with Dad. It was almost in the same breath. It was like, so Dad, I'm pregnant and I'm gonna place this child for adoption.
You know, we'd hoped that we'd raised you that way, so the fact that you didn't even entertain that thought, it was, to be honest, it was a very proud moment.
And I was actually shocked by their response, because I expected them to be angry and like parents' worst nightmare, right? And I was so scared, and they said, Kelly, we're so proud of you for not choosing abortion, and you can move back in with us. We'll figure things out.
I went with Kelly to meet 2 couples that were interested in adopting her child from Bethany, that Bethany had set up for us.
To be honest, I was so nervous to first walk into that agency, because I'm expecting like the wrath of God to be on me. I'd made the biggest mistake of my life, and now, you know, tail between my legs, I'm going to an adoption agency and I'm gonna be judged. When I walked into Bethany, I never experienced any of that. They showed me what it was like to walk with someone through the hardest time of their life, when they are feeling so down on themselves and so alone. They were there.
Sean and Dave Hansen were the second couple that we met. When the interview was over, we just looked at each other. And it was like so obvious that these were the people that would have her little treasure.
I was living with my parents, and I was attending community college at the time. Being pregnant and being in college is never really a great thing. I definitely was uncomfortable in certain situations. I found out very quickly who my true friends were and who weren't. I'll never forget it. I told someone that I was on the track team with and that I was pregnant, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "If you don't get an abortion, I will lose all respect for you." I was horrified. You call yourself pro-choice, but where's my choice? It's my choice to choose adoption. How dare you tell me what to choose? 2 weeks before my birth son was born, I got a phone call from the father of the baby's best friend. He was like, "The father of the baby he's not being faithful to you." I was devastated. This is someone I knew for 8 years. This is someone that I trusted, and I'm having his baby. We had had conversations about getting married. I'm already dealing with the hormones, and hearing that news was the second hardest news to take over those 9 months. Of course, I called him, I confronted him. He tried to lie at first. He ended up admitting it. And this led me to enter a very depressive state. I had this identity built up for myself, and it was shattered when I found out I was pregnant. And then I was holding on to a relationship that was shattered. I walked out to my parents' driveway, to the road outside of their house, and I am 8 months pregnant. I laid down on the road, and I'm just laying there, and I'm saying, "I hope a car comes. I just hope a car comes. I can't do this anymore. I want to die. I can't handle this. This is too much for me." And for the first time in my entire life, I heard a very still small voice that I had never heard. And that still small voice said, "Get up. I'm not done with you yet." And I was like, well, that wasn't for me, because I'm definitely done. I'm done with me. I'm definitely done with me. I got up and I said, okay, I know that this sweet baby did nothing wrong, so I don't want him to get hurt. So I'm gonna have this baby, and then I'm gonna take my life, because I was so broken and I didn't think there was any meaning left. The voice said, no. I said, I'm not done with you yet. And at that moment, I knew that I was loved by a really big God who had a really big heart, that didn't judge me for my pregnancy and still loved me so much. So I pulled myself together. I went to that hospital after my water broke. My parents came with me. My sister was there. And after a very short, very painful labor, I gave birth to the sweetest, healthiest, most wonderful boy. And I held him in my arms, and those 3 days I spent in the hospital, he was mine. He was mine for 3 days. And I held him every night, and I would hum that Mariah Carey song, Always Be My Baby, and just tears would fall down my face. Those moments I'll never forget. They were so precious. After those 3 days, I dressed him up in a little Ralph Lauren onesie. And as I snapped the last little button on his outfit, I realized that was going to be the last time I ever dressed my child. And I don't sugarcoat that because it's real life, and I loved this child so much, but I couldn't give him a father. I couldn't give him brothers and sisters for a long time. I couldn't provide him with what felt like anything that he deserved. And I walked to the hospital chapel, and I held him in my arms, and I just prayed for everything to be okay. When I finished my prayer, I remember his adoptive parents walked in, and I was like, wow, this is so metaphorical, because they truly are an answer to my prayers. They can offer him everything that I want him to have. They can encourage him to be the man that I want him to be one day. They can provide a male role model for him, which I didn't have one of those for him. I thought the hardest day of my life would be finding out that I was pregnant. It wasn't. The hardest day of my life was driving away from that hospital without a baby. I had never felt more empty in my life. I was physically empty, and I felt so alone. I don't paint this picture that it's all sunshine and rainbows when it comes to adoption. However, I think the positives of abortion are talked about more often, as well as the positives of single parenting. I mean, turn on your TV, you will see at least, 5 different shows about teen moms. It's glorified in America to be a single mom, and I support single moms. The single moms that I know, I root for them. Do I think that they're any more wonderful than birth moms? Of course I'm biased, but no, I don't think so at all. I think that birth mothers are just as courageous. I had the baby in September, and I went back to school in January. Those 3 months in between, whirlwind. I worked 3 jobs. I kept myself busy because I was so scared that if I stopped for just a second, I would be an emotional wreck. With the best of intentions, I had friends that threw me a baby shower that was not exactly a baby shower, called, Welcome Back to the Real World, which was super sweet, but I'm like, welcome back to the real world. Where have I been? I hadn't been any more real than what I just went through. And I just remember feeling so much pressure to look the way that I did before I was pregnant. So I basically stopped eating. I just was like, well, I have to be a size 0 again. I felt, pressure to be like out, like partying with people, pressure, like if I'm not in school, I better be working really hard. I remember everybody just telling me over and over again, it's over now, it's over. Aren't you so glad that this is over? What do you mean it's over? What do you mean? I was fine without drinking. I was fine without sleeping around. I had lived a life I was proud of when I was pregnant, and I wanted that to continue, but I was feeling so much pressure to just be that fun sorority party girl that I was before my entire life changed. No one seemed to wrap their head around the fact that my entire worldview had been shifted. I'm 28, so it's been 10 full years. I did graduate from college. I actually went back to school and received a master's in school counseling. My heart is for children, and I would love to one day be either a school counselor or just be a voice for teen moms and teen birth moms. I want them to know that they have value and their life isn't over. They have their whole life ahead of them, and babies aren't meant to be a burden. They're meant to be a blessing. If I could speak to that girl who was at her lowest point, I think that I would just walk right here and I would sit down and I would ask her to tell me what her story is and what prompted her to be at this point where there's nothing left. When I was in that moment, so many people were giving me advice, telling me, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this but not that. And it was exhausting, and I didn't need any more advice. I wanted someone to actually be there, be the embodiment of unconditional love and empathy. It's hard for me to think of other birth moms and how maybe they question, especially if they're not the only child, if maybe they're the only adopted child and there's children in the family that are biological. I wouldn't love my sister more if she was my biological sister. I want other birth moms to know these children are not lacking in love. He not only receives love from his adoptive parents, he receives love from me, he receives love from my parents. There's so much love to go around. When I see my birth son, he's all smiles. So happy to see me. And we hug and we have a blast together. And then it's time to go back to mom. You would think that it would be this emotional thing where I'm so upset that, my birth son is going back with his adoptive parents. It's not, it's this beautiful thing where he's happy that he's seen me. I'm happy that I've seen him. He knows who his parents are. He knows that I'm not mom. One day I hope to be a mom, but I'm not his mom. I get to be birth mommy, and that's okay with me.
Hi Kelly, I miss you, and I want you to know that I'm thinking of you, and I'm glad you placed me for adoption. Bye.